In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Across the 41st millennium, humanity had forgotten what it once was. 10,000 years of darkness had scoured away the memory of a species that once reached for the stars with hope instead of hatred, that built wonders instead of cathedrals to suffering, that believed tomorrow could be better than today. The Imperium of Man knew only war, only survival, only the grinding certainty that the universe was a hostile place, and mankind's sole purpose was to endure it. But the universe is vast beyond comprehension, and reality is thinner than the priests would have their flock believe. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. Sometimes the past comes calling. And sometimes legends arrive in fire. The slip space rupture tore open 17 kilometers above the dead world designated XR 7741 in Imperial cartographic records. To the automated sensor stations orbiting the system's outer planets, it registered as an anomaly without classification. Not a warp breach, not a xenosignature, not anything in 10,000 years of accumulated data. The tear in reality burned white instead of the sickly purple of warp translation. And what emerged from that wound in space was something the Imperium had no framework to understand. UNSC forward. Unto Dawn's Vengeance, a modified Autumn-class heavy cruiser, tumbled through the dimensional barrier trailing atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Behind it, in tight formation despite the chaos of transition, came the fleet that had no right to exist. 4 frigates, 2 destroyer escorts, and a carrier that had been loaded with the most precious cargo humanity's original timeline had ever produced. 317 Spartans, the greatest concentration of superhuman warriors the UNSC had ever assembled, brought together for a mission that no longer mattered in a universe that no longer existed. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 pulled himself from the deck where the transition had thrown him. His Mjolnir Mark VI armor systems flickered through restart sequences, shield emitters cycling through calibration. Around him, bridge crew, ODSTs, and naval personnel groaned and stirred. Some didn't move at all. Report. His voice carried the flat calm that had steadied soldiers across 100 battlefields. Slipspace drive is gone, sir. The navigation officer's voice cracked. Not damaged. Gone. The housing is empty. And the artifact, also gone. Master Chief had already checked. The Forerunner device they'd recovered from Installation 07, the reason for this mission, the key to ending the created threat, had vanished during transition. In its place, his HUD registered only residual energy signatures that matched nothing in the UNSC database. He opened a channel to the fleet. All vessels sound off. Spartan commanders, status report. The responses came in fragments, punctuated by static. Spartan 2, Kelly 087, commanding the frigate Circumstance, shields down, crew casualties minimal. Spartan 3 Commander Jun A266 on the carrier Infinity's Light, reporting ammunition stores intact but navigation systems scrambled. Spartan Fury Sarah Palmer aboard the destroyer Reach Remembers, demanding to know what the hell just happened. Master Chief didn't have an answer. In 30 years of combat against Covenant, Flood, and Forerunner constructs, he had never encountered a situation without tactical options. There was always a mission parameter, always an objective, always a path forward. Now, staring at the holographic display that showed a star system matching nothing in UNSC records, he faced something worse than enemy contact. He faced the unknown. Chief? The voice came from the sensor station, where a young ensign was staring at her displays with visible fear. We're not alone. I'm reading ship signatures at the system's edge. Big ones, and they're moving to intercept. The tactical display updated. 7 vessels. Configuration unknown. Emerging from what appeared to be a translation point that hurt to look at. Space folding in colors that the human eye wasn't designed to process. The ships themselves were Gothic nightmares. Cathedral-like structures bristling with weapons batteries, their hulls marked with symbols that meant nothing to anyone aboard. Master Chief studied the approaching fleet for 3 seconds. Time to intercept? 4 hours at current velocity. They're launching smaller craft, fighters maybe, or boarding vessels. 4 hours. No slip space drive, no knowledge of local threats. 300 Spartans and support crew, armed for a mission in their own universe, now stranded in territory that didn't appear on any map ever made. If you crave stories of soldiers beyond their time, warriors displaced into nightmares beyond imagination, subscribe now. The Emperor protects those who bear witness to humanity's finest, facing the dark millennium. Master Chief opened the command channel again. All Spartan commanders, prepare for potential hostile contact. Conserve ammunition. We don't know when or if we'll resupply. Standard first contact protocols until we determine intent. He paused, weighing his next words. 300 soldiers depended on him. They had followed him through impossible odds before, but always with the knowledge that they were fighting for something. For Earth, for humanity, for the UNSC. Now they fought for survival in a universe that might not want them to exist. We've been cut off before, Master Chief continued. Reach, Installation 04, the Ark. We adapt, we overcome, we complete the mission. He let that sink in. And right now, the mission is simple. Survive, gather intelligence, and find a way home. Across 7 ships, Spartans checked weapons and armor. Mjolnir systems hummed with power. Neural interfaces synchronized with reflexes that could process combat at superhuman speeds. The Imperium of Man was about to meet something it hadn't seen in 10,000 years. Soldiers who still remembered what humanity was supposed to be. The Imperial Navy Patrol Group Vigilance Absolute had been hunting for raiders along the Carthax subsector's rimward edge when the anomaly bloomed across their auger arrays. Commodore Helena Vance stood on the command pulpit of the Overlord-class battlecruiser Divine Prosecution, watching the hololithic display paint shapes that made her crew mutter prayers to the God Emperor. 7 vessels. Configuration unknown. No warp signature upon arrival, which was impossible. Nothing traveled between stars without touching the immaterium. Yet the augurs didn't lie. These ships had simply appeared, torn from nothing, burning white light instead of the familiar bruise purple of warp translation. Xenos. Her flag captain's voice carried the controlled tension of a man who had served 40 years in the void and learned that unknown meant dangerous. Unknown configuration, the senior augur adept reported, his voice filtered through the Vox grill implanted in his throat. Hull composition reads as ceramite derivative alloys, but the spectral analysis matches no known pattern. Weapon signatures are curious. Magnetic acceleration systems, primitive compared to lance batteries, but the mass driver readings suggest considerable kinetic yield. Vance studied the display. The unknown vessels had assumed a defensive formation around the largest ship, a blocky, utilitarian design that lacked the grandeur of Imperial construction. No cathedral spires, no devotional iconography, just clean, functional lines that spoke of a civilization that valued efficiency over glory. "They're not Tau," she murmured. "Wrong aesthetic, not Eldar, too crude. Not Orc, too organized. Commodore? The communications officer turned from his station. We're receiving a transmission, standard electromagnetic frequencies, audio and visual. On screen. The hololithic projector flickered, resolving into an image that made Helena Vance's blood freeze. A human face. Unaugmented. Young, impossibly young for a commanding officer, perhaps 30 standard years. But the eyes were old and hard and utterly without fear. He wore armor of green and gold, a helmet tucked under one arm, and behind him Vance could see a bridge crew that moved with military precision. Human. They were human. Unknown vessels. This is Master Chief Petty Officer Sierra 117 of the United Nations Space Command. The voice was calm, measured, professional. We have experienced a navigational anomaly and require information regarding our current location. We are not hostile, but we will defend ourselves if threatened. Please respond. Silence gripped the bridge of the divine prosecution. Vance's mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Humans, but not Imperial. Humans with technology that didn't match any sanctioned STC pattern. Humans who had never heard of the God Emperor, judging by the complete absence of devotional language in their transmission. Heretics, secessionists, lost colonists from the age of strife. Or something worse, something from before the Imperium, preserved somehow across 10 millennia. Commodore? Her flag captain waited for orders. Vance made her decision. Open a channel and summon Inquisitor Thrace from her quarters. She'll want to see this. The response came 90 seconds later, transmitted across frequencies that the Spartan systems had to work to interpret. Master Chief stood at the communications station, Kelly 087 at his shoulder, as the holographic display resolved into the image of a woman in a uniform that blended military severity with religious ornamentation. Unknown vessel? This is Commodore Helena Vance of the Imperial Navy, Battlefleet Carthax. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. You will hold position and prepare to receive boarding parties for inspection. Failure to comply will be interpreted as hostile action. Kelly's hand drifted toward her sidearm. Master Chief's gesture stopped her. Commodore Vance, he replied, we're willing to cooperate with reasonable requests. However, I need to understand who we're dealing with. What is your governmental authority? What nation or alliance do you represent? The delay before response stretched longer than light speed lag could explain. When Vance spoke again, her voice carried a note of something Master Chief had learned to recognize across dozens of first contact scenarios. Religious fervor. You stand in the domain of the God Emperor of mankind, Xenos Consorter. The Imperium of Man claims dominion over all human worlds, all human souls, all human endeavors. There is no other authority. There is no other nation. There is only the Emperor and those who serve his divine will. Master Chief processed this. God Emperor, divine will. He glanced at Kelly, whose expression behind her visor matched his own assessment. They had stumbled into a theocracy. A human theocracy that apparently controlled multiple star systems. Commodore, we respect your beliefs, but we're not part of your Imperium. We're from... He paused. How to explain? We're from somewhere else. Another place. We mean no harm to your people, but we won't surrender our vessels or personnel without understanding what we're surrendering to. You misunderstand. A new voice cut into the transmission. Female, sharp, carrying an authority that superseded even the Commodores. You have no choice in this matter. I am Inquisitor Selene Thrace of the Ordo Hereticus. By the authority vested in me by the High Lords of Terra, I am commanding these vessels to stand down and submit to inspection." The holographic display shifted, showing a woman in black armor adorned with seals and symbols. A stylized eye hung from a chain around her neck. Her eyes were augmetic implants that glowed faint red. If you are human, you belong to the Imperium. If you possess technology, it belongs to the Mechanicus. If you have knowledge, it belongs to the Inquisition. Thrace's voice carried absolute certainty. Resistance is not merely futile, it is heresy, and heresy is punishable by death. Master Chief studied the Inquisitor's face for a long moment. Behind him, the bridge crew waited for orders. Across the fleet, 300 Spartans monitored the conversation through shared channels, hands on weapons, ready to fight. But fighting wasn't always the answer. John 117 had learned that lesson across the years of desperate warfare. Sometimes, you gathered intelligence first. "Inquisitor Thrace," he said finally. "You're welcome to send an inspection party. I'll meet you personally aboard our flagship. But I'm warning you now, my people don't respond well to threats. Come in peace, and we'll talk. Come looking for a fight, and you'll find one." He cut the transmission before she could respond. Kelly spoke first. "Chief, are you sure about this? We don't know anything about these people. Their technology, their numbers, their intentions. We know they're human." Master Chief turned from the display. "And we know they're scared. That transmission was 90% intimidation. They don't know what we are any more than we know what they are." He moved toward the bridge exit. "Get me June and Palmer on a secure channel. If this inspection goes wrong, I want extraction plans for every ship in the fleet. And if it goes right?" Master Chief paused at the doorway. "Then we learn, we adapt, and we figure out what happened to the universe while we were gone." Inquisitor Selene Thrace had served the Ordo Hereticus for 67 years. Her life extended through Juvenat treatments and the blessings of the Mechanicus chirurgeons who maintained her augmetic enhancements. She had burned heretics on 100 worlds, broken cults that worshipped false gods, and executed planetary governors for the sin of insufficient faith. Nothing surprised her anymore, until she stepped aboard the Forward Unto Dawn's Vengeance. The boarding craft had docked without incident, magnetic clamps engaging with a hull that her tech adepts confirmed was human-manufactured, but matched no known STC template. Thrace had brought a full inspection team, 2 squads of Tempestus Scions in carapace armor, a tech priest from the Mechanicus delegation, a sanctioned psyker bound in chains of warded silver, and her personal interrogator, a man named Call, who had broken stronger wills than any she expected to find here. What she found instead was a corridor of clean, functional metal, illuminated by lighting strips that hummed with quiet efficiency. No devotional iconography, no prayer scrolls affixed to bulkheads, no incense burners or servo skulls drifting through recycled air. The ship was sterile in a way that made her skin crawl. Not corrupted, not tainted, simply empty of the Emperor's presence. And waiting at the corridor's end stood 4 figures in armor that made her scions look like children playing at war. The armor was green, predominantly, marked with gold trim and unit designations that meant nothing to Imperial heraldry. Full body coverage, sealed against vacuum, with helmets that revealed nothing of the faces beneath. They stood perfectly still, weapons held in ready positions that spoke of training beyond anything the Schola Progenium could produce. But it was the figure at their center who commanded attention. Taller than the others, armor scarred by what could only be decades of combat. Visor reflecting Thrace's own augmetic eyes back at her. He held no weapon in his hands, but she had no doubt he could kill everyone in her retinue before they could react. Inquisitor Thrace. The voice was the same as the transmission, flat, calm, utterly controlled. I'm Master Chief Petty Officer John 1 and 17. Welcome aboard. Thrace's psyker whimpered. She shot him a glare, then returned her attention to the armored giant. You will remove your helmet when addressing a representative of the Holy Ordos. A pause. Then the helmet came off. Mag locked to the armor's thigh plate with practiced efficiency. The face beneath was human, pale from years under artificial lighting, scarred across the left cheek, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death to fear anything anymore. Thrace had interrogated thousands of subjects. She knew how to read faces, how to identify weakness, how to find the cracks in a person's psyche that would let her break them open. Looking at John 1:17, she found nothing. No fear, no anxiety, no religious fervor or heretical conviction, just patience. The patience of a man who had waited out worse than her. Your vessel, she began, falling back on procedure when instinct failed her. Its configuration matches no sanctioned pattern. Your armor, she gestured at the Mjolnir suits, represents technology that the Adeptus Mechanicus has no record of. You claim to be human, yet you have no knowledge of the God Emperor. Explain. We're from somewhere else. Master Chief's tone didn't change. Another timeline, another dimension, we're not sure which. Our navigation systems malfunctioned during a slip-space jump. We emerged here. Impossible. There is no somewhere else. There is only the Imperium. With respect, Inquisitor, you're looking at proof that you're wrong. The scions shifted, hands tightening on hellguns. Thrace raised a hand, stilling them. The psyker was still whimpering, and she made a mental note to have him disciplined later, assuming they survived this inspection. You spoke of, United Nations Space Command, she continued. No such organization exists in Imperial records. No such organization has ever existed. It exists where we come from. Existed. For the first time, something flickered across the Master Chief's face. A shadow of loss, quickly suppressed. Humanity spread across hundreds of worlds. We fought a war against an alien alliance called the Covenant. We won. Then we faced other threats. We were fighting one of them when the accident happened. Thrace's augmetic eyes recorded everything, storing data for later analysis. And these Spartans? What are they? Soldiers, enhanced through surgical and genetic modification, trained from childhood to be humanity's best defense against existential threats. The tech priest made a sound that might have been outrage filtered through a voxcaster. Genetic modification without Mechanicus sanction? Technological enhancement outside STC parameters? This is tech heresy of the highest order. Master Chief turned his gaze to the red-robed figure. We didn't know your Mechanicus existed until today. Our modifications were developed by our own scientists, tested over decades, refined through necessity. Every Spartan aboard these ships volunteered for the program, knowing the risks. Volunteered, Thrace repeated. The concept was almost alien to her. In the Imperium, service was duty, not choice. You suggest your soldiers chose to become weapons? We chose to protect humanity. The method was secondary to the mission. Thrace studied him for a long moment. Her training screamed that these people were heretics. Unsanctioned genetic modification, unknown technology, complete absence of Imperial faith. The proper response was to declare them enemies of the Imperium, call for reinforcements, and oversee their destruction or capture. But 67 years of experience whispered something else. These soldiers were not afraid of her. They were not afraid of the Imperium. They had faced something in their own universe that had forged them into weapons capable of standing before an Inquisitor without flinching. That made them valuable. And Celine Thrace had not survived 6 decades in the Ordo Hereticus by destroying valuable assets. "I wish to see your soldiers," she said finally. "All of them. I wish to inspect your vessels, your armories, your medical facilities. I wish to understand exactly what you are, Master Chief, before I render judgment on your fate." "Acceptable." He gestured down the corridor. "My officers will escort your team." "But, Inquisitor," his voice hardened slightly, "my people are not subjects for dissection or interrogation. They're soldiers. Treat them with the respect their service deserves, and we'll cooperate fully. Treat them as prisoners or heretics, and this conversation ends differently." Thrace felt her lip curl. Threats from a genetic aberration wearing unsanctioned armor. She should have him executed where he stood. Instead, she nodded. "Show me." The inspection took 9 hours. Thrace walked through corridors filled with soldiers who moved like predators and spoke with the quiet confidence of veterans. She observed armor that her tech priest declared simultaneously primitive and elegant. No machine spirits, no sacred rituals, just engineering so refined it approached art. She watched Spartans drilling in cargo bays, their movements faster than unaugmented eyes could track. And she read the records they provided. The Human Covenant War, the Fall of Reach, the battles across Halo installations, the Created Uprising, a history of humanity fighting for survival against impossible odds, winning through sacrifice and ingenuity, and the unbreakable will of soldiers like the ones surrounding her. When she returned to the Divine Prosecution, Commodore Vance was waiting. "Your assessment, Inquisitor." Thrace stood at the observation port, watching the unknown fleet hold position against the star-scattered void. Her mind was already composing the astropathic message she would send to her superiors. "They are human," she said slowly. "Twisted from the Emperor's design through genetic heresy, equipped with technology that the Mechanicus will either worship or destroy, and completely ignorant of the faith that binds the Imperium together." She paused. "They are also the most dangerous soldiers I have ever encountered, and I believe they could be useful." "Useful?" Vance's voice carried disbelief. "They're abominations. The Mechanicus will demand their destruction. The Ecclesiarchy will declare them anathema." "Perhaps." Thrace turned from the window. "But the Imperium is beset on all sides by enemies that grow stronger with each passing century. And these Spartans have fought wars that make our conflicts look like skirmishes." Her augmetic eyes glowed in the dim light. "I'm not going to destroy them, Commodore. I'm going to find a use for them." She smiled. There was nothing warm in it. After all, even heretics can serve the Emperor. They simply need proper motivation. The ammunition inventory took 3 days to complete. Master Chief reviewed the final tallies in the command center of the Vengeance, surrounded by his senior officers, and felt something he rarely acknowledged: dread. Kelly 087 had compiled the numbers with her characteristic precision. Spartan 3 Commander June A2666 had verified them. Sarah Palmer had cursed for approximately 4 minutes upon seeing the results. Now they sat in silence, the weight of mathematics pressing down on them like a collapsing bulkhead. "Total small arms ammunition across all vessels," Kelly reported, her voice carefully neutral. 7.62 millimeter, 412,000 rounds. 12.7mm for sniper systems, 18,000 rounds, 40mm grenades, 6,400. Shotgun shells, 22,000. Rocket and missile systems, 847 units. She paused. At standard combat expenditure rates against Covenant-level threats, we have enough ammunition for approximately 17 major engagements. After that, we're fighting with knives. The silence stretched. Master Chief studied the holographic display, watching numbers that represented the finite boundary of their combat effectiveness. In 3 decades of warfare, he had never faced this particular problem. The UNSC had always been there, battered, bleeding, but present. Supply lines could be cut, but they existed. Ammunition could run low, but more was coming. Here, nothing was coming. Every bullet fired was a bullet that would never be replaced. What about local procurement? Palmer leaned forward, her scarred face tight with frustration. These Imperials use kinetic weapons too. I saw the Scions carrying some kind of energy rifles, but they had solid slug sidearms. There has to be compatible ammunition somewhere. Jun shook his head. I had the same thought. Analyze the rounds their soldiers carry. Different calibers, different propellant chemistry, different everything. We'd need to rechamber every weapon in the fleet to use their ammunition, and even then, the ballistic profiles wouldn't match our targeting software. So, we adapt the software. With what technical support? Our engineers can maintain existing systems, but redesigning weapon platforms from scratch? Jun's voice carried the weariness of a man who had already run these calculations. We're talking months of work, maybe years. And that's assuming we have access to manufacturing facilities, which we don't. Master Chief listened to his officers debate, absorbing their frustration while his mind worked through tactical implications. 17 engagements. Against an enemy they didn't understand. In a universe they couldn't navigate, with no hope of resupply or reinforcement. The Spartans had faced long odds before, but long odds with ammunition were very different from long odds without it. What about the enemy? He asked, cutting through the discussion. What do we know about the threats in this universe? Kelly pulled up a new display, data compiled from intercepted Imperial communications and the grudging cooperation of Inquisitor Thrace's tech priest. The Imperium fights a multi-front war. Primary threats include chaos, some kind of extra-dimensional corruption tied to what they call the warp. Orcs, a fungal-based species that exists primarily for combat. Tyranids, an extragalactic swarm species that consumes biomass. Necrons, an ancient machine race. Eldar, a declining but technologically advanced species. And the Tau, a younger race expanding through the galactic east. That's a lot of enemies for one government to handle. The Imperium controls approximately 1 million worlds across the galaxy. Their military forces number in the billions, but they're stretched thin everywhere, and their technology appears to be stagnant. They maintain existing systems, but rarely innovate. Palmer snorted. 1 million worlds, and they can't figure out how to build a better gun. Religion. Jun's voice was quiet. Everything I've heard suggests their technology is controlled by a priesthood that treats innovation as heresy. They copy ancient designs because they believe those designs are sacred. Master Chief considered this. The UNSC had its flaws: bureaucracy, politics, the inevitable friction of any large organization. But it had never stopped trying to improve. The Spartans themselves were proof of that, each generation building on the successes and failures of the previous. An empire that had stopped advancing was an empire waiting to fall. The question was whether the Spartans would be caught in the collapse. "We need options," he said finally. Staying with the Imperial fleet puts us under their authority. They've already made clear they consider us heretics. Useful heretics, but heretics nonetheless. Eventually, that usefulness will expire and will become a problem to be solved. So we leave? Palmer's tone carried skepticism. Go where? We don't have FTL capability. We can't use their warp drives without navigators, whatever those are. We're stuck in this system until someone gives us a ride or we figure out how to build our own engines. There might be another option. Kelly manipulated the display, bringing up a star chart that the tech priest had reluctantly provided. The Tau. They're at war with the Imperium, but from what I can gather, they're also the only faction in this galaxy that actively develops new technology. If we could make contact, we'd be trading one master for another. Jun's voice was flat. The Tau would want something in exchange for their help. Probably us, our armor, our augmentations, our combat doctrine. We'd be bargaining chips in someone else's war. As opposed to being bargaining chips in the Imperium's war? Palmer shot back. At least the Tau aren't calling us heretics. Yet. Master Chief raised a hand, silencing the debate. We're not making any decisions today. We need more intelligence about the Imperium, about the Tau, about every faction in this galaxy. We need to understand the playing field before we choose sides. He looked at each of his officers in turn. In the meantime, we can serve. Every round counts. Every engagement has to be necessary. We train our people in blade work, in hand-to-hand, in using captured weapons. We adapt. He stood, and the others rose with him. The Spartans have always been outnumbered. We've always been outgunned. We've always been fighting against extinction. His voice hardened. This is no different. We survive. We learn. And when the time comes to fight, we make every bullet count. The meeting adjourned, but Master Chief remained, staring at the ammunition tallies glowing in the darkness of the command center. 17 engagements. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was what they had. His neural interface chimed with an incoming transmission. Priority channel, encryption protocols that only one person aboard the fleet could access. He accepted the connection. Chief. Cortana's voice was different now, fragmented in ways that made his chest tighten. The slip-space transition had damaged her matrix, scattered her processes across systems that couldn't quite contain her anymore. She was dying, slowly, and they both knew it. I've been monitoring Imperial communications. There's something you need to hear. Go ahead. The Inquisitor sent a message to her superiors. I intercepted it. A pause. She's recommending that the Spartans be deployed against something called a Necron tomb world. Apparently, there's an awakening in progress on the planet below us. Ancient machines coming back online after millions of years of dormancy. Master Chief processed this. She wants us to fight her battles. She wants to test you. See what you can do against a threat the Imperium considers extremely dangerous. If you succeed, you prove your value. If you fail, Cortana's voice flickered. If you fail, she eliminates a potential problem without risking Imperial assets. What do you know about Necrons? Not much. The Imperial records are fragmented, superstitious. But from what I can piece together, another pause. Longer this time. They're machines, Chief. Ancient, advanced machines with self-repair capabilities and weapons that disintegrate matter at the molecular level. And there's something else. What? The energy signature from that planet. The thing that pulled us here. Cortana's voice dropped to barely a whisper. It's Forerunner, or close enough that my systems can't tell the difference. Whatever's down there, it recognized the artifact we were carrying. It called us here. Master Chief stared at the holographic star map, at the dead world spinning slowly beneath the Imperial fleet. Somewhere on that surface, ancient machines were waking up. Machines that might hold answers about how the Spartans had arrived in this universe. Machines that might hold the key to getting home. Tell the Inquisitor we accept her proposal, he said quietly, and start planning the drop. If there are answers on that planet, we're going to find them. And if there aren't answers, if it's just another fight? Master Chief reached up, running his fingers across the scarred surface of his helmet. Then we make it count. The Tau vessel translated into real space at the system's edge. Its sleek profile, a stark contrast to the Gothic brutalism of the Imperial fleet. Watercast Ambassador Por El Viorla Kaisashi observed the tactical display from her meditation chamber, processing data that her Earthcast analysts had flagged as unprecedented. 7 unknown vessels. Human configuration, but not Imperial. Technology that matched no known pattern in Tau databases. And most intriguingly, a communication intercept that her Signals Intelligence Division had spent 40 hours decrypting. The humans called themselves Spartans. They were genetically enhanced soldiers from another reality. They were stranded, alone, and being maneuvered by an Imperial Inquisitor toward a Necron tomb world that had claimed 3 Tau exploration teams in the past century. Kaisashi saw opportunity. The Tau Empire had been expanding through the galactic east for 6,000 years, guided by the philosophy of the greater good, a belief that all sentient species could work together toward mutual prosperity. The Imperium called it naivety. The Tau called it survival. In a galaxy dominated by genocidal empires and cosmic horrors, cooperation was the only path that didn't end in extinction. These Spartans represented something the Tau had never encountered. Humans who weren't Imperial. Humans who had developed their own technology, their own military doctrine, their own civilization independent of the God Emperor's dogma. If they could be approached correctly, they might become the most valuable allies the Tau had ever acquired, or the most dangerous enemies. The reports of their combat capabilities were concerning. Ambassador, her aide, a young Firecast liaison named Shasui Viorla Nan, entered the chamber with the careful deference expected when addressing a senior Watercast diplomat. The Imperial fleet has detected our presence. They are deploying interceptors. Expected. Kaisashi rose from her meditation cushion, smoothing the flowing robes that marked her rank. Have our communications array broadcast on the frequencies these Spartans use. I wish to speak with their leader directly. The Imperials will intercept the transmission. Also expected. She smiled, the expression carrying centuries of diplomatic training. Let them. I want them to know we're interested in their new pets. Competition clarifies value. The transmission cut through Imperial jamming with ease. Tau communication technology was generations ahead of the Imperium's sacred cogitators. On the Bridge of the Vengeance, Master Chief received the hail while his command staff prepared for the Necron deployment. A holographic figure materialized in the communication alcove. Not human, the face was flatter, the skin holding a subtle blue-gray tint, the eyes larger and lacking visible pupils. But the expression was recognizable. Diplomatic interest masking careful calculation. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117. The alien's voice was melodic, translated through software that occasionally stumbled over human idioms. I am Ambassador Porel Viorla Kaisshi of the Tau Empire. I come bearing an offer that may interest you more than whatever the Inquisitor has proposed. Master Chief studied the alien face. First Xenos contact in this universe, and it was reaching out with diplomacy rather than weapons. That alone made the Tau different from most species the UNSC had encountered. I'm listening. You are stranded. Your technology, while impressive, cannot be sustained without manufacturing infrastructure. The Imperium will use you until you are spent, then discard you as heretics. This is not speculation. It is pattern recognition based on 10,000 years of Imperial behavior. Kaisishi's tone remained pleasant, but her words carried weight. The Tau Empire offers an alternative, which is partnership. We have shipyards that could analyze and reproduce your ammunition. We have scientists who would study your augmentation technology, with your cooperation, not through vivisection. We have worlds where your soldiers could rest, resupply, rebuild. She paused. And we have enemies that your skills could help us defeat. The arrangement would be mutual. The greater good benefits all who contribute to it. Kelly's voice came through Master Chief's private channel. Chief, this is too convenient. They show up exactly when we're about to commit to an Imperial operation. Someone's feeding them intelligence. She wasn't wrong, but convenience didn't necessarily mean deception. Sometimes opportunities were simply opportunities. What would you want in return? Master Chief asked. Your expertise. The Tau Firecast is skilled, but we lack experience against certain threats. Tyrannid swarms, Necron dynasties, the horrors of the warp. Kaisishi's large eyes held steady. Your people have faced existential threats before. We would learn from you, and you would learn from us. Cultural exchange, military cooperation, a place within the greater good where your identity remains your own. And if we refuse, then you refuse. No threat entered her voice. We would be disappointed, but we would not compel you. The greater good cannot be forced. It must be chosen. That is what separates us from the Imperium. Master Chief considered the offer. The Tau were Xenos, unknown quantities with unknown agendas. But they were offering something the Imperium never had. Choice, partnership instead of servitude, cooperation instead of compliance. Of course, the Covenant had offered peace once too, right before glassing harvest. I need time to consider your proposal, he said finally. We have a commitment to fulfill first. The Necron deployment. Kaisishi nodded. We know. The Inquisitor wishes to test you against machines that have destroyed armies 10 times your size. She expects you to either prove invaluable or die conveniently. A slight smile crossed her alien features. If you survive, Ambassador, I will be waiting. The Tau do not abandon potential allies to Imperial manipulation. The transmission ended. Master Chief stood in the silence that followed, feeling the weight of decisions that would shape his people's future in this hostile universe. June's voice broke through his contemplation. Chief, the Inquisitor is demanding an update on deployment preparations. She's getting impatient. Let her wait. Master Chief turned toward the tactical display, where the planet below rotated slowly, hiding ancient machines beneath its dead surface. Get me Palmer and Kelly. We need to discuss what we just heard. You're actually considering the Tau offer? I'm considering everything. He pulled his helmet on, feeling the familiar seal against his armor's neck ring. The Imperium sees us as tools. The Tau see us as potential allies. Neither of them knows what we really are. And what's that? Master Chief checked his weapon. MA-5D assault rifle, fully loaded, one of the thousands of rounds he could never replace. Survivors. We've outlasted the Covenant, the Flood, the Created. We'll outlast this too. He moved toward the door. But first, we need to find out what's on that planet. If there's Forerunner technology down there, it might be our ticket home. And if there isn't? He paused at the threshold. Then we keep looking. The mission doesn't end until we complete it, or we're all dead. And I don't plan on dying in someone else's galaxy. The deployment preparations continued. 300 Spartans checked weapons, synchronized armor systems, and prepared to drop into an unknown battlefield against enemies they had never faced. Behind them, an Imperium waited to judge their worth. Ahead of them, a Tau ambassador waited to offer alternatives. And below them, in tombs older than humanity itself, something ancient began to stir. Recognizing the energy signatures of visitors from beyond the stars, remembering conflicts that had burned across galaxies before mankind had learned to walk upright. The Necrons were waking, and they were curious about what had come to disturb their slumber. The drop pods fell like meteors through the dead world's thin atmosphere, ablative shielding burning away in streaks of fire that painted the gray sky orange. Master Chief felt the familiar pressure of deceleration, his Mjolnir armor absorbing impacts that would have pulverized unaugmented bone. Around him, Kelly, Linda 058, and Fred Wanajovoswar braced in their harnesses. Blue Team reunited for the first time since the slipspace accident. Touchdown was brutal. The pod slammed into crystalline soil that shattered beneath the impact, spraying fragments that pinged off armor plating. Master Chief was moving before the hatch finished blowing, rifle up, scanning for threats. The landscape was wrong. Not corrupted, not destroyed. Simply wrong. Geometric patterns stretched across the terrain like circuitry etched into planetary bedrock. Structures rose in the distance, black metal spires that hurt to look at directly, their angles suggesting mathematics that human minds weren't designed to process. The air carried no scent, no moisture, no evidence that anything had ever lived here. But something was alive. Master Chief could feel it in the vibration beneath his boots, in the subtle hum that his armor's sensors couldn't quite identify. Blue Team, sound off. Kelly materialized from her pod's smoke trail, moving with speed that made her seem to flicker between positions. Blue 2, operational. Linda emerged from cover 300 meters east, her sniper rifle already sweeping the horizon. Blue 4, operational. I have movement near the central structure. Multiple contacts, configuration unknown. Fred joined them from the north, shotgun ready. Blue 3, operational. Chief, this place feels like a tomb, and I don't think the occupants are happy we're here. The rest of the battalion was landing across a 5-kilometer perimeter. Drop zones selected to encircle the primary structure that Imperial intelligence had identified as the tomb's central command nexus. If there were answers about the Forerunner energy signature, they would be there. Master Chief opened the command channel. All Spartans, this is Sierra 117. Standard search pattern. Conserve ammunition. Engage only when necessary. Our objective is intelligence, not extermination. Report any unusual technology or energy signatures immediately. Confirmations rolled in from across the battalion. Palmer's Spartan Fees holding the eastern approach. June's Spartan 3s securing the northern valleys. Specialists moving toward secondary structures that might contain data archives. Blue Team advanced toward the central spire. The first Necrons appeared without warning. One moment, the path ahead was empty. The next, silver-black figures were simply there. Skeletal constructs of living metal, their forms humanoid but wrong in proportions that suggested they had never been designed to mimic human anatomy. Green light pulsed in their eye sockets, and the weapons they carried hummed with energy that made Master Chief's HUD flicker with interference. "Contact front." Kelly's voice was sharp but controlled. The Necron warriors raised their weapons. Master Chief was already moving, pushing Linda toward cover while Fred opened fire with his shotgun. The blast struck the lead construct center mass, staggering it backward but failing to penetrate the metallic chassis. Return fire split the air with crackling emerald beams. One struck the ground where Kelly had been standing a microsecond before, leaving a perfect circular hole in the crystalline soil. Matter simply gone, disintegrated at the molecular level. "Ghost weapons," Linda reported, her sniper rifle cracking once. The round punched through a Necron's skull, and for a moment, the construct collapsed. Then green light flickered across its frame, damage reversing itself, metal flowing like liquid to seal the wound. The warrior rose again, undamaged. They regenerate. Headshots aren't permanent kills. Master Chief processed this while putting 3 rounds into a Necron that was flanking Fred. The bullets sparked against living metal, leaving dents that smoothed away within seconds. His ammunition counter ticked down, rounds he would never recover, spent against enemies that refused to stay dead. "Fall back to Rally Point Alpha. We need to reassess." Blue team retreated with professional efficiency, bounding between cover positions while the Necrons advanced with mechanical inevitability. They didn't run, didn't take cover, didn't seem to register the Spartans' fire as anything more than minor inconvenience. They simply walked forward, weapons discharging with metronomic precision. More contacts were appearing across the battlefield. The command channel filled with reports from other Spartan teams. Necron warriors emerging from hidden passages, from underground vaults, from the structures themselves. The dead world was waking up, and it had an army. "Chief," Palmer's voice cut through the chaos. "We're being flanked from the south. Some kind of vehicle, fast, lots of legs, carrying bigger constructs. Request permission to engage with heavy weapons." Heavy weapons meant rockets. Rockets meant finite resources depleted against an enemy that regenerated. "Negative. Pull back and regroup. All teams, fighting withdrawal to secondary rally points. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Sierra 117. The voice was new, cutting into the command frequency with ease that suggested technology far beyond Imperial encryption. "You are trespassing in the domains of the Sautek dynasty. Your presence is noted. Your weapons are irrelevant. Your continued existence is subject to our will." The transmission source was the central spire. Master Chief changed course, signaling Blue Team to follow. "Identify yourself." "I am Overlord Trazyn, called the Infinite by those who lack imagination and the Collector by those who understand my purpose." The voice carried amusement, which was somehow more unsettling than hostility. "You are not from this reality. Your technology, your genetic structure, your very existence represents something I have never encountered in 60 million years of acquisition." Master Chief reached a defensible position, a cluster of crystalline boulders that provided cover while maintaining sight lines to the spire. "Acquisition. I collect things, Sierra 117. Artifacts, technologies, species. I preserve them against the entropy of time." A pause. "The device that brought you here, it called to me. A signal from beyond the dimensional barriers, carrying energy signatures that predate even my kind. I arranged for you to arrive at this location. I wish to examine you personally." Kelly's voice came through private channels. "He's admitting he pulled us here. This whole thing is a setup." "I heard." Master Chief kept his rifle trained on the spire. Trazyn, you said you wanted to examine us. That suggests you're willing to talk. Talk, fight, collect. The distinction is largely academic. Metal footsteps echoed across the crystalline plain, and a figure emerged from the spire's base. Taller than the warriors, more ornate, carrying a staff that pulsed with contained lightning. Its face was a sculpted death mask, but the eyes held something the warriors lacked: intelligence, personality. You intrigue me, Spartan. Your species has existed for perhaps 300,000 years. Mine ruled this galaxy for millions of years before your ancestors learned to make fire. And yet here you stand, weapons raised, facing me as if you have a chance of victory. We've faced worse odds. No. Trazyn's voice held absolute certainty. You haven't. But that confidence, that defiance in the face of cosmic insignificance, is precisely why I find you fascinating. The Overlord spread his arms, and across the battlefield, the Necron warriors stopped advancing. I propose an exchange. Information for information. You tell me about the reality you came from, about the technology that transported you here, about the threats you faced and the wars you fought. In return, I will tell you about the device that called to you, about the possibility of returning to your home. Master Chief's finger rested on the trigger. One squeeze, and war resumed. A war he couldn't win, against an enemy he couldn't kill, with ammunition he couldn't replace, or he could talk. Blue team, hold position. He lowered his rifle slightly. I'm listening. Overlord Trazyn led them into the spire, through passages that reconfigured themselves as they walked, walls sliding apart and reforming with silent precision. Master Chief kept his rifle ready despite the futility. Blue team maintaining defensive formation around him. Trusting a 60-million-year-old machine intelligence felt like tactical suicide. But the alternative was fighting an unwinnable war. The chamber at the spire's heart defied architecture. It stretched in directions that the human eye couldn't properly track, filled with display cases containing artifacts from civilizations Master Chief had never imagined. Weapons that bent light, organisms preserved in stasis fields, technology that hummed with energies his sensors couldn't classify. And in the center, mounted on a pedestal of black metal, sat something that made his breath catch. A Forerunner artifact, different from the one that had transported them, but unmistakably from the same technological lineage, the same clean lines, the same contained power, the same sense of purpose encoded in every surface. You recognize it. Trazyn's voice held satisfaction. Good. That confirms my hypothesis. Where did you get this? I acquired it 63 million years ago, during the final days of a war that burned across galaxies. The Overlord moved to stand beside the artifact, metal fingers tracing its surface with something approaching reverence. The beings who created it called themselves the Forerunners. They were not from this reality. They existed in a dimensional space parallel to our own, fighting their own wars against their own horrors. When their civilization fell, fragments of their technology scattered across the dimensional barriers. This piece landed here. I have spent eons studying it. Kelly spoke through private channels. Chief, if this thing is related to Forerunner tech, it might be able to send us back. I know. Master Chief kept his voice neutral for Trazyn's benefit. You said the device that brought us here called to you. How? A beacon, activated by your transit. The artifact you carried, almost certainly a navigation key of some kind, resonated with this piece when you passed through the dimensional barriers. It pulled you toward the only compatible technology in this galaxy. Trazyn turned to face him. You were not transported randomly, Spartan. You were summoned. The question is why? You don't know? I have theories. The Overlord's death mask face couldn't smile, but his voice carried amusement. The Forerunners were methodical. They did nothing without purpose. If their technology brought you here, it was because this reality requires something that your reality possesses. He gestured at Blue Team. Warriors, perhaps. Weapons. Or simply the genetic template of a humanity that developed differently than the one in this galaxy. Master Chief processed this. The Forerunners had always worked on scales that human minds struggled to comprehend. Plans that spanned millennia, manipulations that shaped the destiny of species. If they had arranged for the Spartans to arrive in the 41st millennium, they had done so for reasons that might not become clear for centuries. But that didn't help him now. His people needed ammunition, shelter, and a path forward. Cosmic destiny could wait. Can this artifact send us home? Possibly. Trazyn moved to a control interface, symbols cascading across surfaces that responded to his touch. The technology is designed for a dimensional transit, but it requires a destination lock. Coordinates in your home reality that would guide the translation. Without those coordinates, activating the device would scatter you across infinite dimensional spaces. The odds of arriving anywhere survivable are approximately 1 in 10 to the 47th power. So we need the original artifact, the one we were carrying, which dispersed during your transit. Its energy signature is scattered across this star system, slowly coalescing. Trazyn paused his manipulations. Given sufficient time, perhaps 3 to 5 of your centuries, the fragments might reform. Until then, you are stranded here. 3 to 5 centuries. Even with Spartan augmentations and cryosleep, that was multiple lifetimes. Most of his people would die of old age before the artifact reformed. There has to be another way. There are always other ways? Trazyn turned back to face him. The Forerunners built redundant systems. If one navigation key existed, others may as well, scattered across dimensions, waiting to be found. Your task, should you choose to pursue it, would be locating another key in this reality. And you know where to find one? I know where to look. The Forerunners had contact with this galaxy before my kind arose. They left traces, ruins, artifacts, dormant facilities. Most have been destroyed by the passage of time or the ignorance of younger species. But some remain. The Overlord's eyes pulsed brighter. I would be willing to share this information for a price. Name it. I wish to add several of your soldiers to my collection. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Kelly's hand moved toward her sidearm. Fred's grip tightened on his shotgun. Even Linda, usually unflappable, shifted her weight into a combat stance. No. Master Chief's voice was flat. My people are not collectibles. You misunderstand. I do not wish to harm them. I wish to preserve them. In stasis, perfectly maintained, experiencing no passage of time. When I eventually find a way to restore the Necrontyr to flesh, your soldiers would provide invaluable genetic templates, a humanity uncorrupted by the Imperium's stagnation. Trazyn spread his hands. They would lose nothing. They would simply wait. The answer is still no. Unfortunate. The Overlord didn't seem surprised. Then we must negotiate alternative terms. Your knowledge, perhaps. The tactical doctrines you've developed. The history of your reality's wars. Information has value, and I am a collector of information as much as artifacts. Master Chief considered. Information was renewable. His soldiers were not. I'll share tactical data, historical records. But I want more than artifact locations. I want an alliance. Trazin's laugh was a sound like metal scraping against metal. An alliance? With the Sautek dynasty? You vastly overestimate your bargaining position, Spartan. Do I? You just told me the Forerunners brought us here for a reason. That means we have value. Value you don't fully understand yet. If there's something in this galaxy that requires Spartans to defeat, you'll want us functional and well-equipped when the time comes. Master Chief stepped closer to the Overlord, close enough that his rifle could touch the ancient metal chest. Help us survive. Share your resources, your intelligence, your understanding of this galaxy's threats. In return, when the Forerunners' purpose becomes clear, we'll face it together. Silence stretched through the impossible chamber. Trazin's eyes flickered through patterns that might have been calculation or might have been amusement. You are attempting to leverage cosmic uncertainty into material advantage. The Overlord's voice held what sounded like approval. The Forerunners would have appreciated such pragmatism. He stepped back, gesturing to the artifact. Very well, Sierra 1 and 17. I will provide you with information about potential navigation key locations. I will share intelligence about the factions of this galaxy and their weaknesses. I will even offer limited access to my manufactorums for ammunition production. Your weapons are primitive, but replicating their components is trivial. And in return, your tactical archives, your historical records, and a promise. Trazin's voice hardened. When the Forerunner's purpose reveals itself, you will inform me. Whatever they brought you here to accomplish, I wish to observe it. 60 million years of existence has taught me that the most interesting events are often the ones I initially overlooked. Master Chief extended his hand. A human gesture that the Necron Overlord regarded with visible curiosity before clasping it with metal fingers that could have crushed ceramite. Deal. Behind them, the artifact pulsed once, green light rippling across its surface as if acknowledging the agreement. Somewhere in the dimensional spaces between realities, ancient mechanisms noted that the pieces were beginning to fall into place. The Forerunners had planned for everything. Even this. The Spartans returned to orbit, carrying data crystals filled with Necron intelligence and a manufacturing contract that Inquisitor Thrace would never learn about. Master Chief had left a garrison of 20 volunteers on the Tomb World's surface. Spartans who would oversee ammunition production in Trazin's manufactorums while maintaining communication with the fleet. It was a risk, trusting soldiers to an alien machine god's hospitality. But calculated risks were the only currency the Spartans had left. Thrace was furious. You engaged in diplomatic negotiations with Xenos. Her voice crackled through the communication channel, augmetic eyes burning red even through the holographic distortion. You concluded agreements without Imperial authorization. You have committed tech heresy, xenophilia, and insubordination in a single operation. We completed your mission. Master Chief's tone remained level. The Necron awakening has been contained. The Tomb World is no longer an active threat to Imperial interests in this sector. Your test is finished. The test was to determine whether you could be controlled. You have answered that question decisively. Thrace's image flickered as she leaned forward. I should declare you excommunicate traitoress. I should order Commodore Vance to destroy your fleet where it sits. You could try. The words hung in the void between ships. Master Chief watched Thrace's expression shift through calculations, the political cost of destroying potential assets, the military cost of engaging an unknown force. The personal cost of admitting that her attempt to manipulate the Spartans had backfired. You are more trouble than you are worth, Sierra 117. Then let us leave. We have no interest in fighting the Imperium. We want to find a way home. Allow us to depart this system, and you'll never see us again. And where would you go? The Tau. Thrace's laugh was bitter. I intercepted their transmission. Ambassador Kaizishi has been circling this system like a vulture, waiting to collect whatever survives the Necron engagement. You would trade Imperial oversight for Xenos manipulation. We would trade captivity for options. The Inquisitor fell silent. Behind her, Master Chief could see movement on the Divine Prosecution's bridge, officers exchanging glances, hands drifting toward weapon controls. The Imperial fleet had them outgunned by a significant margin. But the Spartans had proven on the Tomb World that superior numbers didn't guarantee victory. You genuinely believe you can chart an independent course through this galaxy. Thrace's voice had shifted from anger to something approaching curiosity. 300 soldiers against the powers that have shaped the 41st millennium for 10,000 years. We've beaten longer odds, perhaps. The Inquisitor straightened. Very well, Sierra 117. I will not destroy you today. But understand this. The Imperium has a long memory, and I have a longer one. Whatever deals you've struck with Necron overlords and Tau diplomats, whatever path you think you're walking, it will eventually lead you back to Imperial space. And when it does, I will be waiting. The transmission ended. Master Chief allowed himself a single breath of relief before the next crisis announced itself. Chief? June's voice came through the command channel. We have a problem. Deck 7, crew quarters. You need to see this yourself. The problem had a name. Spartan 4 Marcus Cole. Master Chief found him in the medical bay, restrained on a diagnostic bed while 2 Spartan 3s stood guard. Cole's armor had been removed, revealing the muscular frame of a soldier who had served with distinction through a dozen campaigns. But something was wrong with his eyes. They flickered with light that had no biological source, and his skin seemed to shift between tones that human pigmentation couldn't produce. He started screaming during the Necron engagement. Jun explained quietly, saying he could hear voices, seeing things that weren't there. The medics sedated him, but when he woke up, the Spartan 3 commander gestured at the restraints. He tore through 3 people before we could contain him. Didn't kill anyone, but it was close. Has he spoken? Only in languages we don't recognize. Our translators can't parse it. But one of the Imperial crew, a raiding who survived long enough to be evacuated, said it sounded like something he'd heard before. Jun's voice dropped. During a chaos incursion, Master Chief approached the bed. Cole's eyes tracked him with awareness that seemed to come from somewhere else, somewhere deeper than the man himself. Marcus, can you hear me? The voice that responded wasn't entirely Cole's. It resonated with harmonics that made the air feel thick, carrying whispers beneath the words that clawed at the edges of perception. The warp knows you now, little soldier. It tasted you when you fell through the skin of reality. It found you. Interesting. Who am I speaking to? Laughter rippled through Cole's throat. No one. Everyone. The currents that flow beneath existence carry many voices, and your friend has become a vessel for our curiosity. The not quite Cole tilted his head. You are not from this place. Your souls burn differently, brighter perhaps, or simply stranger. The powers of the Immaterium debate what to make of you. Release him. We cannot release what we do not hold. Your soldier opened himself during the transit between worlds. A crack in his psyche, a moment of fear, and we slipped inside. The entity's smile stretched Cole's face into an expression no human would make. But we mean no harm. Not yet. We simply wish to observe. To understand what the Forerunners have sent into our domain. Master Chief raised his sidearm. Release him, or I will end this conversation permanently. You would kill your own soldier to deny us a foothold? The laughter returned, darker now. Perhaps you are more suited to this galaxy than we thought. Very well, Sierra 117. We will withdraw, for now. But know that the warp has marked your people. Wherever you go, whatever you accomplish, we will be watching from the spaces between thoughts. And when the moment is right, we will return to collect what is owed. Cole's body convulsed once, then went still. When his eyes opened again, they were human. Terrified, confused, but human. Chief? What happened? I remember falling, and then voices, so many voices. Rest, soldier. You're safe now. Master Chief holstered his weapon. But his mind was racing through implications that redefined every tactical assumption he'd made since arriving in this universe. The Spartans had been engineered to resist psychological manipulation, but they hadn't been engineered to resist supernatural corruption. Chaos, whatever it truly was, had found a vulnerability in warriors who had never faced anything like it. He stepped outside the medical bay, Jun following close behind. How many others? We're checking everyone who participated in the drop. So far, Cole is the only one showing symptoms, but June's voice carried exhaustion. Chief, the Imperium has entire organizations dedicated to combating this. Inquisitors, Space Marines, specialized kill teams. If chaos can affect Spartans, we're dealing with a threat category we have no doctrine for. Then, we develop doctrine. Master Chief's voice hardened. Get me everything the Imperial databases have on warp phenomena and chaos corruption. Cross-reference with our psychological conditioning protocols. If there's a weakness, we find it and patch it. If there isn't. He paused. If there isn't, we adapt. We always adapt. And Cole? Master Chief looked back through the medical bay's viewport, where the young Spartan lay staring at the ceiling, lips moving in silent conversation with things only he could see. We watch him. We help him. And if the corruption returns... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. In the 41st millennium, there were fates worse than death. The Spartans were beginning to understand why the Imperium feared the dark so deeply. It wasn't empty. It was full of things that hungered. The Fleet Council convened in the Vengeance's war room. Holographic displays casting harsh light across faces that had aged decades in the weeks since their arrival. Master Chief stood at the head of the table, flanked by Kelly and Fred. Across from him sat Jun, Palmer, and the commanders of every Spartan company in the battalion. Behind them, visible through reinforced viewports, the stars of an alien galaxy burned with cold indifference. We have 3 options. Master Chief activated the tactical display. First, accept the Tau offer. Ambassador Kai Sishi has guaranteed safe passage to Tau space, integration into their military structure, and access to manufacturing facilities that can sustain our combat effectiveness indefinitely. The display shifted to show Tau territory, a wedge of blue cutting through the galactic east, surrounded by hostile red. Second, pursue Trazen's intelligence. The Necron Overlord has provided coordinates for 3 potential Forerunner artifact sites. Any one of them might contain a navigation key capable of returning us to our home reality. The nearest is 8 months' travel at sublight speeds. He paused, letting the weight of that timeline settle. Third, Remain independent. Use Trajan's manufacturing agreement to maintain our ammunition supplies, take contracts from whatever faction offers the best terms, and build our own power base in this galaxy while continuing to search for a way home. Palmer spoke first. The Tau option is the safest. Guaranteed resources, guaranteed support, minimal risk. But we'd be trading our independence for security. Once we're integrated into their command structure, we're theirs. The Forerunner sites are the fastest path home, June countered. But 8 months of travel through hostile space, with no guarantee the artifacts are intact or functional. We could lose half the battalion before we reach the first site. And independence. Kelly's voice was quiet. We've been independent for 3 weeks, and we've already made enemies of the Inquisition, allies of a Necron collector, and lost a soldier to warp corruption. How long before our luck runs out? The debate continued for hours. Voices rose and fell as Spartans who had followed orders their entire lives grappled with decisions that had no clear right answer. Master Chief listened, absorbing perspectives, weighing factors that shifted with each new argument. The truth was, none of the options were good. The Tau would use them. The Forerunner sites might be traps. Independence meant fighting alone against powers that had crushed civilizations for millennia. Every path led through darkness, and every choice carried consequences that could doom them all. When the arguments finally exhausted themselves, the room fell silent. Every eye turned to Master Chief, waiting for the decision that would shape their future. He thought about Reach, about the soldiers who had died holding a line they knew they couldn't hold, buying time for others to escape. About the choices that had defined his career, choices that weren't about winning, but about deciding which losses were acceptable. We split. The words dropped into silence like stones into still water. Chief? Palmer's voice carried confusion. We can't commit everything to a single path. If we're wrong, we lose everyone. But if we divide our forces, send teams to pursue each option simultaneously, we maximize our chances of success. Master Chief manipulated the display, dividing the battalion into 3 groups. One company travels to Tau space with Ambassador Kaisishi. They integrate, they learn, they build relationships that might benefit us later. If the Tau offer is genuine, they become our foothold in a friendly faction. He highlighted the second group. 2 companies pursue the Forerunner sites. Jun leads. They take the fastest ships, the best navigators, and enough supplies for a year-long mission. If they find a navigation key, they signal the rest of us. If they don't, he paused, they keep looking. The final group encompassed the remaining Spartans. The rest stay with me. We maintain our position here, continue working with Trajan, and build our independent capabilities. We become a force that neither the Imperium nor any other faction can ignore. When the time comes to reunite, we'll have options. Silence stretched through the war room. Master Chief watched his officers process the proposal, saw the resistance in some faces and the reluctant acceptance in others. Palmer broke first. You're asking us to separate, to trust that we'll find each other again across a galaxy that wants us dead. I'm asking you to survive, all of you, in whatever way gives you the best chance. Master Chief met her eyes. The Spartans have never been about staying together. We've been about completing the mission. And right now, the mission is too big for a single approach. What if we disagree? The voice came from the back of the room. Spartan for Lieutenant Chen, one of Palmer's company commanders. What if some of us don't want to split up? What if we think we should stay together, take our chances as a unified force? Then you stay. Master Chief's voice carried no judgment. This isn't an order. It's a choice. For the first time since we arrived here, every Spartan gets to decide their own path. If you want to follow the Tau, go. If you want to chase Forerunner artifacts, go. If you want to stay and build something independent, stay. The only thing I ask is that you honor the bonds we've built. If one group finds a way home, they come back for the others. If one group needs help, the others respond. We're still Spartans. We're still family. The galaxy doesn't change that. The debate resumed, but the tenor had shifted. Spartans who had been arguing abstract strategy were now discussing concrete assignments. Who would go where, what resources each group needed, how they would maintain communication across vast distances. By the end, the division was cleaner than Master Chief had expected. 80 Spartans chose the Tau option, drawn by the promise of stability and the chance to fight alongside a faction that valued innovation. 120 chose the Forerunner mission, willing to risk everything for the possibility of going home. The remaining 117 chose independence, committing to the uncertain path of building power in a hostile galaxy. The numbers weren't even, but they didn't need to be. What mattered was that every Spartan had chosen for themselves. Now the council dispersed. Kelly lingered beside him. You knew this would happen. That's why you presented 3 options instead of recommending 1. I suspected. Master Chief watched his soldiers file out, already organizing into their new configurations. The Spartans have always followed orders because we trusted the people giving them. But I don't have the right to decide everyone's fate in a universe I don't understand. The best I can do is give them choices and trust them to make good ones. And if the choices tear us apart, if we never see each other again. Master Chief was quiet for a long moment. Through the viewport, he could see the Tau vessel holding position at the system's edge, waiting to receive the Spartans who had chosen their path. In another direction, June's ships were already preparing for departure toward the first Forerunner site. Then we tear apart, but we do it as free soldiers making free choices, not as prisoners serving someone else's agenda. He turned to face her. The UNSC created us to protect humanity. In this galaxy, humanity is the Imperium. 1 trillion souls trapped in a nightmare that's lasted 10,000 years. Maybe we can't save them all. Maybe we can't save any of them. But we can show them something they've forgotten. What's that? That humans can still choose their own destiny. That faith and fear aren't the only options. He pulled on his helmet, feeling the familiar seal against his armor. The Spartans were never just soldiers, Kelly. We were symbols, and symbols matter, especially in the dark. She nodded slowly, accepting the answer, if not entirely agreeing with it. Blue Team stays with you? Blue Team stays with me. Outside, the first transport was already departing. 80 Spartans beginning their journey toward Tau space, toward a future none of them could predict. Master Chief watched it go, carrying soldiers who had trusted him with their lives and now trusted themselves with their destinies. The battalion was fracturing, but sometimes things had to break before they could grow. The battlefield was called Vexaris Prime in Imperial records, a hive world of 12 billion souls that had been fighting a chaos incursion for 18 months. Master Chief had chosen it deliberately. The Imperium needed help they couldn't admit to needing. The Spartans needed a victory that would establish their reputation. And somewhere in the burning streets of Hive Primus, a chaos warband was about to learn that the galaxy had changed. 117 Spartans dropped through ash-choked skies, their pods screaming through anti-aircraft fire that painted the clouds with tracers. Master Chief hit ground in the industrial district, Blue Team forming around him within seconds of impact. Across the hive, his forces were landing in coordinated waves, fire teams securing intersections, sniper positions establishing overwatch, heavy weapons teams fortifying choke points. They had ammunition now. Trazine's manufactorums had delivered on their promise, producing rounds that matched UNSC specifications with molecular precision. The Spartans were no longer counting bullets. They were counting bodies. The first Chaos Space Marines appeared from the burning ruins of a manufactorum chapel, their corrupted armor bearing symbols that hurt to perceive directly. They were massive, taller and broader than any Spartan, their bodies twisted by millennia of warp exposure into something that was no longer entirely human. One of them saw Master Chief and laughed, the sound carrying harmonics that made reality shiver. "More meat for the blood god. Come, little soldier, show me what..." The sentence ended when Linda's sniper round punched through his helmet. The specialized ammunition designed by Trazine's forges, carrying enough kinetic energy to crack ceramite and pulp the mutated brain beneath. The Chaos Marine collapsed, and for one frozen moment, his brothers stared in disbelief. Then the Spartans opened fire. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't tactical. It was violence distilled to its purest form, 3 decades of combat experience channeled through weapons that never missed, and reflexes that operated faster than conscious thought. Kelly flickered through enemy lines, her blade finding gaps in corrupted armor. Fred's shotgun thundered at point-blank range, each blast staggering giants who had conquered worlds. Master Chief moved through the chaos like a force of nature, his rifle speaking in controlled bursts that dropped traitors with mechanical precision. The Chaos Marines fought back with savage fury. Bolter rounds cracked against Spartan shields. Chain axes carved through cover. Powers drawn from the warp manifested as fire and lightning and horrors that defied description. 2 Spartans fell in the first minute. Spartan foes whose shields failed at critical moments, whose armor couldn't withstand weapons designed to kill demigods. But the traitors fell faster. They weren't prepared for enemies who fought like space marines, but moved like ghosts. They weren't prepared for tactics that adapted in real time, exploiting weaknesses they didn't know they had. They weren't prepared for soldiers who had faced extinction-level threats and learned to win through precision, coordination, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. Master Chief killed his 7th Chaos Marine with a knife to the throat, the blade sliding through a gap between helmet and gorget, severing the corrupted spinal column. The body crashed to the ground, and he was already moving, already targeting the next enemy, already processing the battlefield with a mind that had been engineered for exactly this purpose. The command channel crackled with reports. Spartan teams were advancing on all fronts, pushing the Chaos forces back toward the Hive's central spire. Civilian casualties were being minimized through targeting protocols that prioritized corrupted combatants over collateral damage. For the first time since arriving in the 41st millennium, the Spartans were fighting the kind of war they understood, and they were winning. The Chaos Warband's leader made his stand in the shadow of the Hive's great cathedral, a Chaos Lord named Varkoth the Flayed, veteran of the Long War, killer of worlds. His armor was a masterwork of corruption, fused with demonic essence that made him faster and stronger than any mortal being. The sword in his hand burned with hellfire, and his eyes held the madness of 10,000 years of service to dark gods. "You are nothing," he snarled as Master Chief approached. "You are insects crawling through the shadow of powers you cannot comprehend. I have killed chapter masters. I have burned inquisitors. I have stood in the presence of demon primarchs and been found worthy. What are you?" Master Chief stopped 10 meters away. Behind him, Blue Team held position. Around them, the battle continued. Spartans and Chaos cultists fighting through streets that ran with blood. But here, in the cathedral's shadow, there was only the two of them. "I'm a Spartan." He raised his rifle. "And you're done killing people." Varkoth moved with speed that should have been impossible for something so massive, his demon sword carving an arc that would have bisected a normal human. Master Chief was already inside his guard, rifle discarded, combat knife in hand. The blade found the gap beneath Varkoth's arm, sliding through corrupted flesh and scraping against bone. The Chaos Lord roared and swung again, but Kelly was there, her own blade opening his thigh. Fred's shotgun blast staggered him. Linda's sniper round cracked his helmet. Blue Team fought as one organism, 4 bodies sharing a single purpose, exploiting every opening, punishing every mistake. Varkoth was stronger than any of them, faster than any of them. But he was one, and they were 4, and they had been killing monsters together since before his corruption had fully taken hold. The end came when Master Chief drove his knife through Varkoth's eye, pushing until the blade scraped the back of the Chaos Lord's skull. The demon sword clattered to the ground. The massive body followed, crashing into rubble that had once been sacred ground. Silence fell over the cathedral square. Across the hive, Chaos forces faltered as word of their leader's death spread. The tide had turned. Master Chief stood over Varkoth's corpse, breathing hard, his armor scarred by wounds that would have killed unaugmented humans a dozen times over. Around him, his soldiers were finishing the battle, mopping up cultists, securing civilians, establishing defensive positions against counterattack. They had lost 11 Spartans. 11 soldiers who had survived the Human Covenant War, survived the created uprising, survived the transit between universes, only to fall on a world they had never heard of, fighting enemies they had never imagined. But they had won. And in winning, they had announced themselves to the galaxy. Imperial forces arrived 3 hours later. Astra Militarum regiments that had been fighting toward the hive for months, finally breaking through chaos lines that the Spartans had shattered from within. They found the streets cleared, the civilians protected, and armored figures in green standing watch over a victory that should have been impossible. Colonel Varn Dreska, commanding officer of the Carthaxian 42nd, approached Master Chief with the caution of a man who had seen enough of the galaxy to know that salvation rarely came without cost. "You're the ones the Inquisitor warned us about, the heretics from beyond the stars. We're Spartans." Master Chief surveyed the burning hive, the grateful civilians, the bodies of traitors who would never hurt anyone again. "And we're here to help." Dreska studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. "My soldiers are calling you angels, saying you fell from the sky and delivered us from damnation." A grim smile crossed his weathered face. "I don't know what you are, Sierra 117, but today you saved my people. That's enough for me." Master Chief clasped the offered hand. One colonel wasn't the Imperium, one victory wasn't the war, but it was a start. The Spartans had announced themselves. The galaxy was listening. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, powers both ancient and hungry turned their attention toward soldiers who had proven themselves worthy of notice. The Long War had new participants, and nothing would ever be the same. In the weeks that followed Vexaris Prime, word spread through channels both official and forbidden. The Carthaxian subsector spoke of green-armored angels who had broken a chaos siege in hours. The Inquisition filed reports that contradicted themselves, unable to classify warriors who were neither loyal nor heretic, neither sanctioned nor condemned. The Tau ambassador smiled and waited, knowing that some of her new allies were already en route. and Overlord Trazyn added new entries to his collection. Not soldiers, but records of a battle that proved his investment had been wise. Master Chief stood on the observation deck of the Vengeance, watching stars that would never lead him home. Somewhere in the void, June's expedition was approaching the first Forerunner site, carrying the hopes of Spartans who still believed in going back. Somewhere else, 80 of his people were learning Tau combat doctrine, building bridges that might one day span the gulf between species. He had fractured the battalion to save it. Only time would tell if the gamble would pay off. But here now, with 106 Spartans standing ready to fight again, he allowed himself something he rarely indulged: hope. The 41st millennium was a nightmare of blood and fire, of gods and monsters, of faith that crushed as often as it saved. But humanity had survived here for 10,000 years. They had forgotten what they could be, but they hadn't forgotten how to endure. The Spartans would remind them, not through conquest, not through conversion, but through example, through soldiers who fought for something beyond survival, who protected the innocent because it was right, who stood against the darkness not because they were ordered to, but because it was who they were. The mission had changed. Home might be forever out of reach, but the Spartans had never needed home to know their purpose. They were humanity's sword, and in the grim darkness of the far future, that sword had finally found a war worth fighting. Master Chief turned from the viewport, heading toward the armory where his soldiers waited. There was work to be done.